On the rescue tray, one leaf has already gone soft enough to fold under its own weight. The pot tilts a little as you steady the soil with 2 fingers and clip away the part that is not coming back. To family, this can look like one more small thing you refuse to let go of. But for many older adults, the deeper pull is not really about the plant. It is about the rare comfort of seeing care do something visible again. A stem lifts a little. The soil takes water instead of rejecting it. A living thing answers your attention in a way that can still be seen with your own eyes. And in a stage of life where so much feels harder to measure, where fewer roles ask for you as directly as they once did, that kind of response can land with surprising force. Because when something responds to your care, usefulness becomes visible again, which is why this is not only about the plant surviving. And then something quieter starts to show up. You turn the small pot a little toward the porch light, not because the change is dramatic, but because even a slight shift in angle feels worth trying. A few hours later, you come back and notice the leaves are not as collapsed as they were before. From the outside, that may not seem like much, but when a part of life has become slow to answer, small, visible improvement can feel larger than it looks. That is why saving a fading plant can carry so much emotional weight without looking dramatic at all. It offers a beginning, an action, and a result that your own hands can still trust. You do not have to guess whether your care landed. The plant tells you, even if only a little. And when inner steadiness feels harder to measure than it once did, that kind of proof can start to matter more than people around you realize. The part that looks small from the outside is not small at all. Many people who feel this pull did not arrive at it randomly. They spent years noticing what was slipping, what needed tending, what might still hold together if someone stepped in early enough. In adult life, that kind of attention often had somewhere obvious to go, into a household, into children, into routines, into the quiet work of keeping things from falling apart before anyone else even noticed. So when those larger roles begin to thin out, the instinct itself does not disappear. It just loses its clearest destination. A weak plant on a tray can reach that old reflex almost instantly. You separate the fading one from the stronger pots, press the soil back around its roots, and respond before the damage spreads. That can look like overinvestment in something minor, but it can also reveal a hidden strength and a hidden cost at the same time. The strength of still seeing what needs help, and the cost of feeling most certain of your value when something still depends on you. What makes this harder to explain is what it gives back. You water slowly at the edge of the pot instead of pouring straight through the middle, then slide the plant out of the harsh sun and into a softer strip of light. None of it looks dramatic. There is no big rescue scene, no visible triumph, just careful attention, steady hands, and the refusal to walk away the moment something starts looking worn out. That is a real kind of strength. Some people keep seeing what can still be saved long after others have decided the outcome is already settled. They notice the part that is still alive, the part that might respond, the part that deserves one more try. In later life, that can reflect patience, competence, and a very grounded kind of moral steadiness. But there is a cost hidden inside it too. When you are the kind of person who keeps believing care should matter, it becomes harder to know when you are being devoted, and when you are quietly fighting the fear that letting go means your usefulness is fading too. And this is where the habit stops looking simple. By the end of the day, a yellowed leaf drops onto the tray, and you do not throw the pot away right away. You pause. You look again. You touch the rim as if there might still be one more small thing to try. To another person, that may seem like making too much of a plant that is already on its way out. But sometimes the emotional weight is no longer sitting inside the plant alone. Because once self-trust starts attaching itself to visible rescue, every loss can feel slightly bigger than it should. If the plant does not come back, the disappointment is not always just about gardening. It can brush against a quieter question. Does my care still change anything now? That is the hidden cost many people never say out loud. The strength is real, so is the devotion. But over time, it can become harder to tell the difference between loving the act of saving something and needing that act to prove that your hands, your judgment, and your presence still matter in a living world. And this is where people often read it wrong. Someone at the table may glance out toward the patio and say, "It's just a plant," or suggest buying a new one and being done with it. The sentence sounds practical, maybe even helpful, but it misses the actual exchange taking place. The family may be measuring the object by its replaceable value, while the person holding on to it is measuring something far more private, whether care can still turn into a visible result. That is why the misread can sting more than it seems like it should. They think the attachment is to the plant itself, when what is really happening is closer to a quiet test of usefulness. They see someone staying too long with something weak. What is actually happening is that one of the few remaining places where attention still changes an outcome is being protected. And when that difference goes unseen, the person is not just misunderstood about gardening. They are being misunderstood about what they are trying to keep alive in themselves. The more private layer usually shows up later. A tiny new shoot appears near the base, and your fingers rest on the edge of the pot for a second longer than they need to. The response is small, almost nothing. But emotionally, it can feel like an answer. Not because the plant is suddenly healthy, and not because every effort will work, but because something in the world still responds when you step in with care at the right moment. That is where the meaning changes. Sometimes a person is not only trying to save a fading plant, they are trying to stay connected to a version of themselves they have known for years. The one who could notice trouble early, do something useful, and make a situation a little better than it was before. In that sense, the plant becomes more than a plant. It becomes a quiet way of feeling continuity with the self. And when usefulness is no longer measured the way it once was, that kind of small living proof can begin to hold a person together more than they ever planned to admit. Sometimes the harder truth is that a person is not only caring for the plant, but leaning on the response it gives back. That does not make them weak or overly attached. It shows how much visible proof can matter when so much else in life has grown vague. What looks like rescuing a fading plant is often a form of hand-led reassurance that care still has weight. And once you see that, the habit stops looking small and starts looking deeply human. This is the part many older adults wish more people understood without having to explain it. From the outside, it can look like someone refusing to give up on a weak plant long after common sense says to move on. But what is actually happening inside is often much more personal than that. The person is not simply trying to rescue something fading. They may be reaching for the feeling that their care still lands somewhere, that it still changes the condition of a living thing in front of them. On the porch step, the same pot now holds one leaf standing a little firmer than before, and the person looking at it does not need to say anything out loud. The moment is small, but it carries dignity. They see a little proof. Other people see unnecessary effort. Sometimes saving one thing is how a person feels useful again. And once you understand that, the habit no longer looks like stubbornness. It looks like a quiet attempt to remain visible to oneself in a stage of life that can make usefulness feel harder to find. Back at the rescue tray, the same plant is still not perfect. One leaf is gone, another stands a little higher, the soil sits firmer around the roots than it did at the beginning. From the outside, that may still look like a very small outcome, but for the person who stayed with it, the meaning is larger now. The change is not only in the plant, it is in the visible fact that their attention still had weight. So this was never just about refusing to throw away something weak. It was about needing to see, with their own eyes, that care could still do good in the world right in front of them. That their presence was not neutral, that their hands were not finished. And sometimes, that is the deeper truth inside these quiet rescue habits. What is being brought back is not only the plant, but a steadier sense that the self is still capable of nurturing life in a real and visible way. What makes this feel so personal is not weakness, and it is not foolish attachment to something small. It is the signal of a deeper need, to know that care still has force, that usefulness is not gone just because life no longer displays it the way it once did. For many older adults, that need does not disappear. It simply becomes quieter and harder to explain. And when a fading plant answers back, even a little, it can reassure something deeper than mood. It can reassure the part of a person still trying to trust their own value.